And welcome everyone to the session today. This is actually a topic that I love teaching all kinds of topics, but this is one that I really, really like because I'm that person too. Where are my files? I remember saying that lots of different times. So it's really nice to be able to kind of say, my files are located here. I want to know where my files are. So today when we talk about, different ways and different places that we can actually save our files, the decision in the end, of course, will be yours to decide which of these locations would be best. There are some best practices that come along with this, and we'll talk a little bit about those as we go through our session. So in general, when we talk about file management, we want to have a place where we have access to our files on a very quickly, easily place to get to them. I kind of said that a little weird, but anyway, what we're referring to is I want to be able to get to my files when I need them. And I don't want it to be jumping through hoops to try and find it. So with the tools that we have available through our Microsoft 365, we can be utilizing SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, and OneDrive to very easily manage where our files are stored at. And the best part is they can be shared because of the fact that SharePoint and Teams being SharePoint gives us that sharing capability. But we also do have sharing options built into OneDrive that we will also touch on today. But each one of these are going to have a little bit different of features that will be readily available, but all of them technically in the background will be able to handle multiple options. Now, I'll get to what those options are here in just a moment. But I really want to kind of start with SharePoint. SharePoint, hence its name SharePoint, is a document library system that allows us to have a place to store files. And we can have multiple document libraries available within a SharePoint site. So I happen to open up a SharePoint site that I have available. It's just called Clinic. And I want to point out the fact that at the top left, you can see this image where it says Clinic. It's got a logo to it, and it has this icon next to it, which is actually the Teams icon. So this particular SharePoint site is a team site. So it's a site that was built through SharePoint, but it was built on the foundation of Microsoft Teams. So there's a reason I'm actually bringing that up. Now, the other way that I know that it's a SharePoint team site is because the navigation is across the left-hand side. I should say down the left-hand side. If I were in a SharePoint communication site, which also utilizes document libraries, the navigation would be going across the top. Now, both of those sites, technically we could access any document library through Microsoft Teams. I'll show you how that would work. We also could access SharePoint document libraries through File Explorer, which I'll definitely cover that today as well. It really is built to be very convenient for us to get to our files regardless of where we are. So we're going to see that today. But starting in SharePoint, every time a SharePoint site is built, whether it's a communication site or if it's a team site, doesn't matter. It always comes with a document library. And it's generically named Documents. Very easy to kind of understand. So here on the left-hand side of this SharePoint site, I have Documents. When I click on it, I can see my list of files that are available within this document library. Whoever has rights by default to this SharePoint site will have rights to this document library. Now, just so you know, we could have a document library that not everybody has rights to. We can have different permissions for certain document libraries. Because if I have, 100 people that access this SharePoint site, what if only 40 of them need this document library. We do have the ability to set up different permissions. So each SharePoint site can have multiple document libraries. Now, what exactly is a document library? Well, just like the name says, documents are stored within the library, and the documents can be anything. They can be any type of a file. They can be PDFs, they can be images, they can be videos, they can be Excel workbooks, whatever the file type is, they can be stored in a document library. Now, just to give you a general rundown as to what you're seeing when you come into a SharePoint document library, I don't have any folders or files selected right now. So the menu you're seeing going across the top where it has new, upload, etc., this is menu options related to the entire document library. We'll go through what those are. But the menu will change if I happen to select a file. So if I go to the left-hand side of a file within these columns and rows, if I just click that circle on the left-hand side that I see when I hesitate on the name, when I select it, the menu changes across the top to be related to managing the file that I selected. Now, of course, I could select more than one file at a time, but just to give you an idea of how that menu can look different. And before I kind of dive into what we can do with that menu, when you're looking at right below the menu, it's going to say the word documents, then it says in channels, in-site library. The in-site library is showing multiple folders at the top. I have a folder called attachments, I have finance and accounting, I have general, I have vaccinations. Now, keep in mind the name general and vaccinations for a moment here. The finance and accounting and the attachments folders, we can add folders at any time to this document library, but general and vaccinations, those two folders are actually coming from Microsoft Teams. I'll explain that a little bit more as we go kind of back and forth in between Teams and SharePoint. But I want to show you a different SharePoint site real quick. So if I go to this SharePoint site called Our Intranet, it's going to have a documents library because we always have one by default. Now I do have navigation going across the top. This is a communication SharePoint site. So I'm not seeing the Teams connection on the left-hand side. And if I go to Documents, it's going to open the Documents library. What I'm not going to see is in Channels because this is not connected to a Microsoft Teams team. A Microsoft Teams team. So I'm just seeing Documents at the top. And that's been a little confusing. I get that question a lot. Why am I seeing in channels? Why am I seeing this folder? It's not part of my document library. It's in Teams. Well, if the SharePoint site is communication, it's not connected to a Microsoft team. So that's what's going on with this one. I get exactly the same menu choices as far as managing the document library, managing the files. I'll get the same menu choices. But let me go back to that Clinic SharePoint site, where on the Clinic SharePoint site, that's directly connected with Microsoft Teams. So when I see documents, in channels, in site library, the in-site library is referring to all documents within this site. If I expand this in channels, it's only going to show me general and vaccinations because those two folders technically are the File tab from Microsoft Teams. Let me show you Microsoft Teams. So if I go to Microsoft Teams and I'm in my Teams of Microsoft Teams, I'm just going to shrink those teams up. Here's that clinic. Notice the same logo. If I click the name of that clinic, I have two channels. One is called General, one is called Vaccinations. So if I go to the vaccinations channel, I have my tabs across the top on the right. If I click the Files tab, it will show me the document library for the vaccinations channel. But the whole team is directly connected to SharePoint, but these channels are just a part of Teams. They were created in Teams, not created in SharePoint. But the whole site, Clinic, was created in SharePoint. So I only have one file right now in the Files tab of the vaccinations. So let me jump back to SharePoint. And if I click the folder for vaccinations, either from in the channels or all of my documents, I only have the one file. So just so you're mapping out, the vaccinations is coming from the channel called vaccinations, which was created in Teams. The documents library called documents is in SharePoint, but I can access the Files tab from the channels within Teams. They're connected because this is a SharePoint Teams site. Okay. Now, let me kind of navigate back to the main documents. So when I look at this vaccinations and then I have documents, documents is a link that will jump me back to the main folder called documents, where under the in-site library, I can still have access to vaccinations, which only has that one file. I have two different ways to get to it here in SharePoint. In Teams, I need to go to the vaccinations channel to access the files. So I hope that's all making sense and it's connecting together. So it depends on what type of SharePoint site it is. If it's a communication site, it doesn't create a team. So I won't have those channels with the File tab. But if it's a Teams SharePoint site, I will also have the documents and I'll have any of the File tab coming from any of the channels. I'll have both, okay? Just so you keep that in mind. So how do we work in this document library? So what if I'm here in SharePoint, I'm in this vaccinations folder, and I want to add a new file. Well, one way I can do that is just simply go to the menu at the top and click New. I can do that here, or I can do that in Teams. And I could create a new folder, or I could create a Word document, a PowerPoint, etc. Let's say that I want to create a new Excel workbook. When I click Excel workbook, it opens up a new tab because that's how I have mine defaulting. It's going to open up a new workbook that I can create, and it's going to automatically be saved in vaccinations. So I'm going to say that this is going to be my 2026, if I could type, 2026 company holidays. So I come in and I make all these changes to this file, and I can always come back later and make more changes. But it doesn't have a name to it yet, so I'm just going to go to the top where it says book. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to give it a name. So I'm going to call it 2026 Company Holidays to go along with that title that I put on there. And notice that the location is in Clinic in vaccinations. So I'm just going to press Enter to automatically save that with that name. Now it does have automatic save, auto save turned on because it's in the cloud. So what do we mean by things being in the cloud? Well, anything in SharePoint, anything in OneDrive, which includes Teams, because Teams is SharePoint, they're the cloud, which means we have access to those files anytime we have an internet connection. We will have access to those files. Okay, now I'm just going to close this Excel file. And you're going to see that it's automatically saved here in this vaccinations document library. So I can access this file here in the SharePoint site on my internet browser. I can also access that file by going back to Microsoft Teams. And I can manage other files. Like, let's say that I have a file that I created over the weekend and I happen to save it to a flash drive or to my C drive or my network drive. I can go to the menu at the top, click Upload. I could also drag and drop. I could use File Explorer to get files in there as well. We have lots of ways. But an easy way is Upload, click Files. You can then navigate to wherever the files are stored at, and you can then add them. So let's say that I want to go to my training documents, I want to go into computer shortcuts, and I want to bring in this PDF. I'll click Open, and it's going to automatically bring a copy of that file. Now keep in mind, if that's a file that's going to change, you don't want to keep the original back in your C drive or wherever. You're going to want to have one file in one location, because anytime we're copying things in by doing upload, if it was on my network drive, it was on my C drive, etc., there's going to be some confusion. If I don't get rid of the original one and just work with this one, there can be confusion as to which one should I be using. So we want to make sure when you bring a file in, it's copying it, go back to the original location and delete it out, so that this is going to be the only place you go to work with that file, here or through Teams or through OneDrive, depending on how you want to get to it. Okay? Now, a couple of other things that I want to mention that are going across the top of the window for managing the entire document library is Edit in Grid View is actually allowing us to go to any of these fields and actually make changes to the actual content. I'm going to click Exit Grid View. I also have Share, where I could select a file or share the entire document library, but I'll show you that in another way here in a moment. I also could copy a link. But one of my favorite features is Add Shortcut to OneDrive. So this is a SharePoint document library, but if I want to be able to get to it through File Explorer, through my OneDrive, I can click Add Shortcut to OneDrive. It's already there. Sorry. So it's telling me that shortcut is already there. But just so you know, I'm now going to be able to get to these files from other places, not just SharePoint, not just Teams. I'm also going to be able to go through File Explorer and OneDrive. So I'll show you that here in a moment. But as we kind of look at the different features that we have going across, there's a couple of features that are great to know, but I can't see them on my screen right now. So I'm going to go to the menu at the top and click the dot, 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 so I can see all of the different choices on managing this document library. One of them is going to be Automate, where we have built-in automation where we can create flows. We could be creating rules. We could be creating quick steps that are all related to working with our Power tools. So we can automate processes. Now, just to show you an example, if I go to Quick Steps and I click Create a Quick Step, this takes me into a newer window added about a month or so ago, and it's giving me these little templates. Do I want to draft an email when something happens? Do I want to start a Teams chat? Do I want to set a value within a field if something happens within a column? Do I want to execute a flow? Do I want to move a file or folder or copy a file or folder? Just so you know, these are templates that we could actually choose. If I click on any of them, it gives you a little wizard that you have to fill out. So it says show a command that will, for every selected file or folder, it will copy it to, and then I can choose where it's going to go to. Which folder do I want it to go to? So it's a way that we have a built-in option for being, and I'm not really going to do this, I'm going to close it, but it's a way that we can easily build a workflow. We do have sessions on working with workflows, so I won't go through all of that with you here today. I'll just show you a couple of them that are built into SharePoint, which makes SharePoint one of my favorite places to save files. But beyond that, if I go back to the dot menu at the top right. I have integrate where I can integrate my power options. I could go to a channel. But one of the things that I do quite often is, what if I'm responsible for the files within this document library? I could actually set up an alert. And how I do that is, if I click Alert Me, I can give the alert a name, and it's a workflow where then it's going to automatically email me based on, and I have it on all changes, or I could say new items are added to this document library, I want to get a notification, or existing items are modified, or if something gets deleted, I want to get notified. And then how often do I want to be notified? I want to be notified immediately. So if something happens, I want to know about it. I'm going to click OK. Now that alert is set up. So if anything happens in this document library, I'm going to get an email notification letting me know that something happened. Like, what if I want to delete something? So I put this computer shortcuts, but this is a vaccinations folder. That probably doesn't belong there. So I'm going to go to that file and I want to manage it. One way to do that is to either right click on the file or go to the ... menu when you hesitate on the name. From that menu, you get a pop-up of all kinds of different choices. I do have a license for Adobe Acrobat on my computer, so I'm seeing some of those options. So you may not see those if you don't have that. But what are you going to do here? Well, we could open the file and we could choose where we want to open it from. We could get a preview of it. We could share it. We could copy a link. We could manage the access. We could delete it. We could save it as a favorite, because we have favorite options we can go to. We can download it, we can rename it, we can pin it at the top. There's a ton of different choices. I could move it to a different location, because if I put it in vaccinations and that's not where it should be, I could choose this move to. So when I click on move to, I could then navigate to wherever I want to move this file to. Or I could delete it, rename it, whatever my case might be. So let's say that I want to actually move it to legal documents, which is also a document library in my clinic SharePoint site. I'm going to click legal documents. I'm going to click move here. It automatically is now going to move that file to that other document library. So if something gets put in the wrong place or you change your mind later, like I created a new folder, now I want this file there, you can drag and drop it too, but I can also do it this way. But what else can I do? Well, I created this file here called 2026 Company Holidays. I created it here in the SharePoint document library, but I need to go back in and make a couple more changes. So I'm going to click the name of the file to reopen it again. Now, by the way, any of these changes that are happening, I'm getting email notifications that I'll show you, but I want to come in and start putting in what our company holidays are going to be. So 1/1/26. So maybe I want to put in titles for the date, and then what holiday is it, or what is the event going on that we're going to not be working, and then maybe I want to format those. I'll do a little background color to it, whatever the case might be, just so you could see we could do those kind of things. So I made some changes to this file. So I'm going to go ahead and close it again, and it's automatically saving like we said before. But what is great about using a cloud, whether it's OneDrive, it's in Teams, or if it's in SharePoint here, each of these files have version history, meaning that I can go to a file, right click or click the ... menu, and down here towards the bottom, you can see I got all these different choices. I kind of left off here at move. Here's version history. If I click version history, since the file was created and saved into a cloud, or since it was moved into the cloud, I have all the times that this file has been modified. So I have 4 different modifications that happened to this file. If I want to go back to a previous version of this file, I can click on the link and it will automatically open that file. So if I want to go to a specific version of it, it will automatically open that. Now it's actually opening it on my other screen here. Let me slide that over so you can see that. Come on. Here it comes. So just so you could see, this is going to give me a message at the top saying previous version. To make this previous version become the latest version, I can click restore, where what that's going to actually do is put it back to being empty. None of my data would be here. But if that's what I wanted to start from scratch again, I could have it go back to that one. Now I'm going to say that I don't want to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and close it. I still have all these other versions of it. So if I want to go back to any of those, I certainly can. But what if this file is going to, I'm going to close this. What if this file is actually going to be utilized by a lot of other people? Because, 100 people have access to this document library. And I might have 3, 4 other people coming into this workbook and helping me set this up. They might be in different sheets, whatever the case might be. But what if I need to make a change to this and I don't want anybody else in it right now? We have the ability of checking the file out. I'm going to right click on that file again. And then down at the bottom, I'm going to hesitate on more. At the bottom of this menu, I'm going to hesitate on more. I'm going to click checkout. What this does is it locks everybody else out from coming into this file right now. So I have it open exclusively. Now I could open this file, make all my necessary changes. When I'm done, I would come back and check it back in so that other people can have access to it. So maybe I need to, create a new sheet that is going to have a drop-down list of I'm going to do some data validation and I want it to have, New Year's Eve. I want to have New Year's Day, etc. I want to have this special list that we're going to use for data validation. This is going to be our list of holidays. So back on sheet 1, everybody's going to be able to click on a drop-down arrow to choose whatever the holiday is. Well, I wanted to do that with nobody else in here. So now that I'm done, I'm going to close the file. I'm going to check the file back in. Now, by the way, when I hesitate on the name of this file, I get a little pop-up window. Right from there, I can go back to check in. When I click check in, it's going to allow me to put in any comments. So I'm going to say this is what I did when I checked it out. I added a list of holidays for data validation. And I'm going to click check in. So now everybody can go back and use that file. So let me go back in though and show you the version history, because now I have another version of that file and we're going to be able to see the comments. So let me go back into version history. The comments will show up in the last column of this view. So if you check a file out, when you check it back in and put in comments, they show up here in this version history. Now, of course, if I wanted to go back to a previous version, we have the rights to do that. So in any of our cloud-based locations, we have the capability of doing this. But what if I'm done with these company holidays? I need to send them to my manager. Hey, Matthew, I just saw that comment come up. Let me quick answer that. That was a good question. So if I right-click, I can go into preview. If I right-click on a file, I can go into preview. It doesn't necessarily open it. It takes me into a reading window where I'm going like this because if I had multiple pages and stuff, I could navigate to multiple pages by using arrows. But this is a preview of that file. I didn't necessarily open it. If I want to open it, I can go to the top right and open it. So that would be how you could do that. I'm just going to close that preview, the top right. And then did we have another question come through?
Yeah, we do have another question. Someone was wondering, their organization doesn't have a SharePoint site yet. Can they create their finance site, even though the SharePoint site for the organization, can they create that site before the organization creates their general SharePoint site?
Yes. So if they're going to, and so if I heard this correctly, if their company is going to have a hub, and then they're going to have a separate SharePoint site for each department kind of a thing, they can create that now. And then once the hub is created, who's ever an admin turns that site into a hub, whichever site it is, and then we connect to that hub. So we could take that accounting website or whatever the name of it is and connect it to that hub. Yep.
Yeah,
So it
perfect.
can
Thank
get
you.
started now.
Yeah.
I love SharePoint. It's got so many capabilities. It's unbelievable. But I do want to talk about this other great feature that we have. So I'm going to go back into that vaccinations folder, and I have these company holidays that I need to get approved. A built-in workflow with SharePoint, not OneDrive, is we can send a file for approval. So I'm going to right-click on this file. From the menu, I'm going to go to Automate. I'm going to hesitate on flows. It doesn't work for the entire document library. It only works for an individual file. I'm going to choose Request Sign-Off. This is a Power Automate workflow that is built for us directly here inside of SharePoint. So from that, it's going to open up a window on the right-hand side. I can then choose the email addresses of who I want to send it to, type in an email message. That message will then, once I run the flow, it will go to Outlook and it's going to go to Teams. So I'm just going to send it to myself. Just, just so you know, I'm having myself approve or reject this. Come on. Sorry. So I'm going to say that I want Jolynn to approve this, and please review this file, and I would put in what I want them to know. Okay. When I'm done, go to the bottom right, click Run Flow. This is called an instant flow. What that means is it's going to send it immediately. It's not set up on a timer. It just goes right away. So now what's going to happen is I can go to Outlook or I can go to Teams, and I'm going to have a notification in just a second in my activities here in Teams. That notification is going to be that request I just sent. It will give me a link to the file. There, it finally came. It's going to give me a link to the file, so I go to my activities. Here's this request. Jolynn sent you a request. Opens on the right-hand side. It's going to show me the status. It gives me a link to the file. I'll go out and review the file. Then I can come back in here and I can add comments and then click Reject or Approve. Add one more, then send to all employees. Or whatever, you put your notes back to the person, click the approve or reject, they get notified again, letting them know if it was approved or rejected, and it's updating it in a status column back in the document library. There's a column that says pending, rejected, approved, and here in Teams, it automatically opens the approval app, because it's one of our 365 apps running in the background that it sent it through, called approvals. So these are all of the approvals that I've done. Now, of course, they're all test ones through training, so they were all sent by me to me, but you can see all the status of all of these. Now, just so you know, I also got a notification directly in Outlook. So if I come into Outlook, come on. Sorry. I'm going to go to my other folder. And by the way, I have a lot of notifications in here because I successfully created that alert and I made changes. So I'm getting my emails set up on that alert. And then I got the notification about please approve, where I could have done the same thing that I just did through Teams. And then I got a notification back letting me know that it was approved. So I got all these extra emails with those features that I was showing you. So pretty cool that we get those notifications. So absolutely love those. And I like the fact that they're built in. But what if I'm here in Microsoft Teams and I go to the left-hand side to Teams and I go to this vaccinations and I go to the Files tab. Here's that same file. I was using it in SharePoint, but it's also here because of the connection that I showed you earlier that it's part of that Teams SharePoint site. So if I go into that file from here, of course, I could right click just like I did in SharePoint. I'm going to get almost identical menu choices. You could see that I can delete it, I can share it, I can manage access to it, I can rename it. Under the More category, I can check it out. But you're not seeing some of those other features. You're not seeing version history right now, and you're not seeing the ability for me to actually do that request sign off. I would actually need to open this in SharePoint to get those features automatically. As of today, I'm hoping Microsoft is going to change that because this is a SharePoint document library. Because as soon as a team is created, it creates a SharePoint site. So if I click Open in SharePoint, it's going to open up a new tab in my internet browser, taking me directly to that folder, to that document library. Now I get all of the SharePoint features when I right-click on the file. So I'm a little limited back in Teams, but it takes me 2 seconds to get to it here in SharePoint. So it still gives me great options to work with. But when I told the computer that I wanted to have a shortcut to OneDrive, how do I do that? How do I get to that file? Well, if I go to OneDrive, which for me, my habit is usually I'm in Teams, and I can open OneDrive on the left-hand side. Now, of course, I can get to OneDrive through Outlook, the new Outlook. There's a shortcut on the menu bar on the left. Also, I could log into my Microsoft account and have access to OneDrive. Lots of ways to get there. But here in Teams, if I go to the left and click OneDrive, I will have all of my OneDrive files and SharePoint document libraries accessible. But the ones that I added a shortcut to, if I go to this middle part of this OneDrive, click My Files. If I click My Files, this is everything that I have in my OneDrive, which I can show you the same exact thing in File Explorer. The folders that have the person icon and this arrow, these are all shortcuts. Actually, here's that shortcut to Documents Clinic. If I click that folder here in OneDrive, it's going to give me exactly the same as what you saw back in SharePoint. I have all of those same folders, so if I come into this vaccinations again, here's those files. I can use them directly here through OneDrive. So I don't have to go to SharePoint, click on the document library to get to them. If I'm already here, I could do it right here. If I right-click this file name, I'll get a pop-up menu, but I don't get every detail. I would have to open it in SharePoint to have all features. I'm a little limited like in Teams. Okay? Pretty great that we have that capability. Now, I won't reopen it again, but just so you could see, you could do that. But I can do that same thing in File Explorer. So if I come into File Explorer, let me bring that window over here. Come on. Slide with me. There we go. And on my left-hand side, if I click on Matthew, let me go ahead and get your question here answered first.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So someone was wondering if they have a file that needs constant updating by only one person, and it needs to be accessible to be viewed by everyone. What is the best practice recommendation for doing that?
Well, do the other people need to have edit capabilities?
No, they do not need to. She previously was just updating the file, and then posting that file as a PDF every time. And then they were viewing the PDF, so no editing was needed.
Okay. That's not a bad way to do it, but if they want the file to be opened in the original application and just not be able to be edited, the file could be a copy of it that's a read-only, that is saved there, and we can update it that way. The thing is about the permissions. It's all about the permission. So if I put it in a SharePoint document library, by default, everybody that has rights to that library has rights to that file, unless I lock the file down within the application, which
Mhm.
you could do. It could be a read-only file. So there's going to be multiple options available. I can lock it down directly, like if it were Excel, I could lock it down right in Excel or Microsoft Word, etc. It could be staying with it being a PDF. It could be a copy of just a read-only. Otherwise, it can be a little messy to have a file have special permissions directly in a document library.
Mm,
So you're really kind of better off doing it right within the file. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
In one
just
file situation.
just to be clear, these permissions, you can't create a read-only file within the SharePoint document. You would have to go and make that file a read-only file within the app in which it exists.
Or share it with everybody with view only access. So let me show you what I mean by that. If I go to a file, and it can be in Teams, it can be in SharePoint, it can be in OneDrive, it doesn't really matter where it's at. Let me go back here. So let's say that this file, this company holidays file, I want to share that with other people. It could be my OneDrive file. So it's in my OneDrive. OneDrive means one is just for you. Share means you're sharing it with others. So if this file was in my OneDrive, it works exactly the same. So if I go to share, the icon, right click, go into share, lots of different ways to get there. But when I come into the share window from even through File Explorer, I can do this. I can then choose, these are the people I want to have access to this, but read only. I still have full rights to it, but they are read only. So I could put the names of everybody, or I could simply click on the pencil, choose can view, then I could copy a link or send them an email with that link. Then it's going to be read only.
Okay,
Okay.
great, nice. But if they access with this way, if they were to access the file through the document library in SharePoint, then they would still be able to edit the file.
If it's in the document library, they would still be able to edit it unless we put permissions on that file directly there. Yeah. So
Okay, great.
you'd be better off having it in OneDrive and then sharing it. But if you have, 200 people you're going to share it with, that's not going to be very good. You're going to want
Yeah.
it to be open as read only directly from the application, like from
Yeah,
Excel or Word, that kind of thing.
gotcha.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And if I
Yeah.
could just get one more question in, and then
Yeah.
after this question, maybe I'll let you finish, and then we'll tackle the rest in the Q&A
Yeah.
section at the end
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you give access to someone outside the organization? For example, if your bookkeeper is external and doesn't have an organization email or identity, can we get them access to a file within SharePoint?
As long as you personally have rights to share with outside your organization, the answer
Mm,
is yes. So when I did that right click and I went into share, click the share icon, the email address that I put in there can be anybody. Matthew and I share files, and it's a link. I just go to the link that he emails me and I click on the link and I can automatically open up the file. So if you have the rights to share externally to external users, yes, you definitely can. Okay,
great.
good question.
Awesome. Thank you, Jolene.
You're welcome. So I want to talk more about OneDrive. So I'm going to go back to Microsoft Teams, but like I said, I can actually access OneDrive from the internet browser, going to my Microsoft account, those kind of ways. But when I'm here in OneDrive, on the left-hand side, you can see this first group of commands here. I have a home category, which opens by default, but you have access to your recent files. So here's my recent file for that clinic SharePoint site. So it doesn't even have to be files that are just saved within OneDrive. I can have access to recent files that are coming from someplace else. Also, on the left-hand side, there's this quick access area where I can actually pin document libraries to my quick access, which would allow me to have access to them right here. Otherwise, it has my most recent. So if I want to go to this marketing department document library that's part of Microsoft Teams, I can get to it directly here through File Explorer. I'm sorry, through OneDrive. But also here in OneDrive, on the home category, I can filter by, let's say I only want to see Word documents that are listed here. I can click Word and it's just going to show me Word documents. Otherwise, all shows all types of files. But if I want to see just my files through OneDrive, I go to the left-hand side and I click My Files. This is going to show me every file and every folder I have in my OneDrive, just like I showed you in File Explorer a moment ago. And on the left-hand side, I have this Shared category. From Shared, this filters just the files that have been shared. Notice at the top left it says With You, By You. I can look at files that were shared by you, me, or with me, with you. You could see that I could access those files. And I even see you edited this 18 minutes ago. So it tells me who was it shared by. So here's one from Matthew here's another one for Matthew. All of these files were shared by Matthew. So outside of my organization, because we're not in the same domain. So I like having that shortcut on the left. Also on the left, you will find favorites. So when you're looking at your you're looking at your OneDrive files, you have the ability of clicking a star or right-clicking and choosing favorites, so that if you have certain files that you're working on regularly, save them as a favorite so you have a quick, easy way to get to them without having to jump from folder to folder, whatever that may, all those different things. Also, every SharePoint document library and your OneDrive all have a recycle bin. So your SharePoint document libraries, if something gets deleted, we have 93 days by default to go to the recycle bin to recover a file. We get to manage that. We don't have to go to IT and say, hey, can you get that off the backup, that kind of thing. We have access to our recycle bin for 93 days. So you could see these are the things that I've recently deleted. If I want to bring any of these back, I can select the file, go to the top and click Restore. Just like we can restore things off our desktop recycle bin, SharePoint document libraries and OneDrive all have a recycle bin. But on the left-hand side, what I really like here in OneDrive also is under this Browse Files By. If I click People, it's going to show people that I share files with or that they've sent me files on a pretty regular basis. So here's some from Dave, here's some from Matthew, Haley, etc. So these I can quickly get to just by going to Browse by People. I also have meetings. So if I do a meeting and we share a file, it automatically could be accessed here. I don't have to go back to the meeting, to the calendar and all of that. I can actually get access to it right here. So these are my recent ones. Also on the left-hand side, I have access to media. Media is going to show you pictures that you've recently used. Anybody want to buy a truck or a car? Because I just bought this Jeep. So these are pictures that are actually coming from multiple places. If I do a screenshot, do a screenshot on your computer, you're going to see those files as well. It's amazing how easy it is to find all your files within OneDrive. And it's not just your OneDrive files. I'm getting access to my SharePoint document library files from here as well. So when we talk about managing files, there's some best practices to be aware of. The first thing to think about is, let's say that you go to Excel, you create a brand new file. So I go to Excel, I created this brand new file. Let me slide that file over here so you can see what I'm doing. I need to decide where should this file be saved. So if I just need access to it, nobody else needs access to it, I could save it to my OneDrive if it's just for me. If I'm going to be sharing it with other people, and we already have a team site or a SharePoint site already created, and it has a document library that everybody has access to, and it matches with the name of whatever that location is, I could do it there instead. I could do it there. So I could save it wherever I need it to be. So you want to think about who needs access to it. So if I go up to the top and I click book 4 or whatever book number it is, and I give this file a name, I can then keep my default location of OneDrive, but I might need to put it in a specific folder in my OneDrive. I could click where it says choose a location, and here's my recent locations. So if I want one of those, great. Otherwise, I can go to more locations and choose that. But what if I want to save it to a SharePoint document library or inside Teams? I could go to the bottom left and click more options. It's going to take me into my Save As window, where we have access right from our applications to choose either my OneDrive, or I could go to my quick access SharePoint sites, or I can go to Show More, and I can have access to all of my document libraries. So let's say that I want to save it in my clinic SharePoint site. You could see it's automatically on clinic. I give the file a name, which I'm generically naming it. I click save, and this file is now saved in that SharePoint site. So I don't have to be in the document library and create the file, or I don't have to be in OneDrive to create the file, or in Teams and create the file. It can all be done right here in the application that you're using. So you want to kind of think about where should the file go. If it's just for you, OneDrive. If you need to share it with others, do you already have something established that everybody that you need to share it with has rights to? Do you have a team? Do you have a SharePoint site? Do you have a specific channel file tab that it should go in? Do you have a specific document library in the SharePoint site it should go? Then put it there. Okay? So those are going to be your best practices because it will automatically be shared if you put it in SharePoint or Teams.